the main reason to put this image of the granted mining permit, where we're actively mining within the government contract, is to emphasise that we are a very small company, obviously market cap wise, but we are in fact mining and producing a potential direct shipping ore that we're reviewing at the moment, whether we proceed with that, but also about drilling out the resource reserves in the future. Next slide, please. Or I'll do it. Yep. So disclaimer, it's important to look at that because we will talk about future outcomes that are related to a mining lease. The market cap reflects, as per most juniors, fairly static, but we're certainly differentiating things with both drill results soon and also underground numbers, both in Tasmania principally, but also in New South Wales. Talk about that. Very sticky register. The two principal directors, and Andrew Van Heist, Ted Leschke, control significant stakes, as well as a loyal core group, so a tightly held stock. Okay, so we'll go through the use of funds, which we've raised recently, mainly because investors put in, sorry, just got a short time problem with my seat. Investors put in a significant amount of money based on the metallurgy and mining activity in Tasmania. Magwood is also an antimony project in New South Wales, which we're currently permitting, and also Webb's Console Silver, which I'm looking at, and the, I think, dark horse in Uralla Gold Project. So I don't expect everyone to remember all these numbers, apart from the fact they're very high grade. That's fine, talking about high grades, but importantly, a lot of these numbers are generated either from drill results or underground bulk sample in the past. When it comes to Montezuma in particular, and I'll take it above as read that we're 100% owned, etc. But when it comes to Montezuma, we're seeing not just high-grade antimony, which is the focus of today's talks, but also supporting that is very high-grade silver. I've worked in silver for 30 years and, well, 28 years, and I can tell you that anything above 200 is interesting on the silver side of things, with intercepts over 5 metres. So we're pretty excited about these intercepts, and more will follow. Webb's Console the same, with just silver there, and Uralla. We haven't drilled Magwood, the antimony gold brownfields project, and Uralla, which I think is sediment-hosted gold related to an intrusive, which is very interesting, like some of the things to the south, such as McPhillamys. So we'll work on that in due course. It just has to compete internally with Montezuma. The project is, Montezuma is certainly been well managed in the past by the vendor before we took it on. And importantly, they're continuing with the company managing things in Western Tasmania. We've got a consideration, which is of course paid, in which exposes them to the upside as well. Going forward, heavy on shares, light on cash, which ensures that they do very well when the company does well in the near-term production environment. And the qualities of the project will go through, that they're manifestly low risk in some regards from the metallurgy point of view, certainly. That's because of metallurgy. If you look at the second or third paragraph, the metallurgy was largely already advanced on the project. There's a permitted plant which needs some upgrading nearby in Granville. And there's also exploration upside, as we see, third point from the bottom. Commenced some good work by EZ, which became Pasminco in the 1980s, defining a large tin anomaly, and then tin's important as a surface anomaly because it's an oxide, it doesn't weather significantly, but it does give clues to the antimony silver system depth. And when I say system, I'd just like to point out that this surface mapping, as per the second last paragraph, is picked up on the fact it's not vein hosted, it's a continuous structure, and that's I think the last point on the left, 0.4, that's the key point, that it's a continuous mineralized structure. Because when you get high grades, you always worry about continuity. As a geologist, as a resource and mining geologist, I am skeptical when I see high grades, but after visiting site in January, the heartening thing and the exciting thing was the fact that it's a long strike occupying a structure. It could be normal, could be reverse structure, it doesn't matter. The main thing is continuous, like we see to the north at Rosebery. So talking about projects which are nearby, there's, importantly, a world-class VMS system at Rosebery. Henty, where I worked in the late 90s, when that was commissioned underground. I was an underground geologist there, and importantly, far superior geologists has agreed to join us on the resource and permitting work and exploration work in Tim Callaghan. Montezuma is just to the west, and Renison to the north, and some Zeon systems which are not being mined, nor is Avery being mined further to the southwest. But basically, you've got an active mining terrain with 3 active mines, if you like, to the north and east of Montezuma. So plenty of access to experts and people, as you expect on the west coast. We omitted Mount Lyell to the south. We're just working on that diagram. What I would like to see is consolidation of the tenure in the company. So I look forward to some news on that around the Montezuma project itself in the Mount Reeds, which is the famous belt that hosts most of the long-lived, large-scale systems in Tasmania. But importantly, the thing that attracted me to the transaction that Ted and Andrew, the other directors, drove was the fact you've also got a processing plant that's permitted to the west, as well as a granted mining lease. So it's a bit of a leapfrogging event that the directors have set up. So there's a lot of numbers here, but just take away the key point of not extremely high grade antimony, silver and lead goes to the easy metallurgy apparently. We've got certainly development work that's been done, which is backing that up, and we're legally allowed to extract that material. So there is a few stockpiles actually we're pondering with further studies to differentiate the company and get some production going. And again, I like what the key point I make about grade, etc., ad nausea, is that at least it's the grade's continuing at roughly the same numbers. So relatively no low nugget effect, which you see with some other gold antimony projects. This is a silver antimony lead project, and it's basically not stratiform, but basically a structurally controlled continuous sulfide zone. So low nugget, which is good for the resource geologists and also the planning engineers. We have development phases, which are, again, I won't bore people with the continual high-grade narrative. We are working on the metallurgy because we don't want to be complacent about that, and there's certain legal requirements before we do feasibility studies, etc., in the future, post-resource. And that again was work that had already been advanced by the vendor. That's why we're already at this point. The diamond drilling program is the next news flow for shareholders. It will be a starburst pattern from the site, and we've checked out all the pads recently. Subvertical system, so access is flexible, and we have LiDAR showing us where to clear the tracks. So I'm heartened actually working in New South Wales, comparing it. Tasmania is far more, frankly, commercial in terms of drill permitting and also monitoring. So that's a positive for Tasmania. And it's fairly busy, but the yellow numbers, the antimony, which is the focus of today's talk, in a Pierce point. This is a vertical slice through the system, simplified somewhat, but it gives you an idea that the grade's continuing at depth. It's not some sort of high-grade pod at surface that will peter out. We have strong conviction that these grades, and of course there'll be variation, but the grades will continue when we drill out the rest of the strike in the coming weeks. Shouldn't say the rest of the strike, but the assigned strike of about 500 metres in the coming weeks and month. I'm going to have to wrap it up, I believe. How are we going for time? But I think we're okay.
You've got a little bit more time, Jason.
All right. So I'm just going to, without going through, because you sort of bombarded with numbers, but basically what you can see, we've been doing a lot of work on the surface. There's a tiny area that's defined versus the strike to the south, defined again by the tin anomaly. Sorry, that graphically didn't work in PowerPoint. Importantly, every company should have one of these. And this goes to news flow, so you will see thick news flow as an investor or a potential investor. And there's people contacting us, obviously, because of the near-term production concept. I might leave it there with the antimony thematic, Andy. Is that a timely, or did I stop too early?
Well, if you want to just go to your summary slide, there's time for you to do that. So
all right, we'll skip through New South Wales because we haven't got the antimony project permitted there. I do note Lode Resources spoke earlier about the Hillgrove mine. We're just to the north of that, and the New England project, we're calling it Magwood, which is, for want of a better word, littered with projects, and is Magwood antimony mine itself is what I would call as a exploration resource geo a sitting duck. Hasn't been drilled, high grade, again, same theme as Tasmania. So we're repeating the same process as others have done in the past of drilling out brownfields point blank projects. We won't dwell on Webb's silver project, but that'll be an exploration target in due course, which I've got to pull my finger out and complete. Pipes of silver, basically, like we see to our north. And Uralla, as I mentioned, intrusive related gold and bulk information on that. All right, so that's the conclusion slide there, Andy. Basically, you look forward to news flow of drill-related and metallurgy-related in the coming weeks and months. Generally high grade. I'd be surprised if it was otherwise.
Fantastic. Just in terms of the news flow, can you be a little bit more specific? What is ahead, let's say, in the next 3 months?
So the drill program that I flagged for Montezuma would be the next thing. Obviously, we do not release visual results, but we'll see turnaround's quite fast with the lab in ALS in Burnie. So we should see results with that, I'd say, if drilling's at a few weeks and allow a few more weeks, so maybe 4 weeks before you see some results. The other piece of information that'll come out is there's been some trenching and prospecting work going on in the background, so that'll fill that 4-week void for the attention span of the market.
Always important. Do you have your eyes on any further asset acquisitions, any further land surrounding Montezuma? Well, that might be.
Certainly, that's topical because there's companies, and we never judge this, that are focused elsewhere. So yeah, we're certainly looking at since I worked there 28 years ago, it's been pegged out correctly because it's a jewelry box, the West Coast, and driven a lot of value. One of the best books ever written out of my old uni, Melbourne Uni, which is The Peaks of Lyell, discuss the amount of wealth that's been built out of Mount Lyell, Renison, etc. There's no limit to the amount of potential there, although it's quite technically difficult to find systems. You look for growth faults, you look for grabens, and to date, MMG's success at Rosebery has been great because they keep finding lenses. So we're hopeful we'll emulate that kind of work, obviously at a far earlier stage.